Members of Women's Democratic Club. Somebody in the back, if your signal too loud, not loud enough. Get a thumbs up. So I assume that people are hearing me. Grab a drink. Please take off exactly this one in here. Nobody will notice. And let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It's very exciting for me to be here, to be proud, to feel this energy, and to hear all of you say, great turnout. But it's the Women's Democratic Club, so please, folks. We have a great program tonight. I'm Diana Conway. I am, for now, the current future ex-president of the Women's Democratic Club. Welcome to our annual meeting and our biennial elections. Here's tonight's agenda. You're going to hear from me just one last time, and I think you might be as excited about that as I am. I'm going to recognize the many elected officials who joined us. Well, at least the ones who are on my list. So if those of you who have not checked in, be prepared to wave your hands vigorously. And then I have a few quick things to get off my chest. And then my final official act as president will be to call to order our annual general membership meeting and to elect the new executive committee to lead WDC for the next 2 years. And that's going to be 2 years and a whole lot of political action ahead of us. And then, assuming everything goes as expected during the election, spoiler alert, my friend and colleague Tazeen Ahmad will make some remarks and bring on our two outstanding speakers. These are two Maryland political figures who have landed firmly on the national level and for more than just their WDC membership. So I think around the room there's some QR codes, and it is our hope that you will take lots and lots of pictures of each other and yourselves and post them all in the photo album so we can enjoy just this kind of thing in another couple of years. So anything that you would post to the QR would be terrific. Thank you. Elected officials, here we go. Given the number of people, and we're glad you're here, I'm asking that you kindly hold your applause while I recognize the elected officials who joined us for yet another event. And again, we thank you. We know you've got lots of other things on your plate. We thank you for your support for WDC and your membership. So starting by holding your applause, we have from the state party, State Treasurer Devon Shaw is here. Nope. And Guy Jokin from the Democratic Trustees is here. Senator Van Hollen is represented tonight by his State Director Ashima Talwar. From the Central Committee, these are Democrats, you can tell, right? So from the Central Committee, silence our phones, we have Saman Ahmed, Andrew Sondry, Teresa Warman, Pam Luckett, Jim Montgomery, Cece Grant, Lisa Smith, Michael Tardif, Arthur Edmonds, Michelle Whitaker, Shruti Bhatnagar, Marco Rivera Oven, Jim Michaels. I think that's it. Committee. Thank you. We have Mayor Dia Costello here, who very kindly loaned us a plaque. Thank you. We have Sheriff Max Reed here, and I believe the Deputy State's Attorney Catherine Flynn is here, or will be shortly. And from the Board of Education, we have Julie Yang, Brenda Wolf, former WDC board member, Shebra Evans, former WDC board member. From the Board of Elections, we have David Naiman. And from the County Council, we have County Executive Mark Elrich, and from the County Council, we have Marilyn Balcom, Natalie Fonnie Gonzalez, Lori Ann Sales, former WDC board member, Kate Stewart, Gabe Albernos, President Evan Glass, and a couple of you here, Andrew Friedson, and I got everybody? Oh, Senator Susan Lee, you're a senator, you're not a council member. You're not a senator, you're a secretary, beg your pardon. Kristen Mink is also here. Thank you, Kristen, for joining us. Yeah, we have a secretary. Okay, then from the state delegation, get ready, guys. Okay, so we have Mark Corman, Janelle Wilkins, Greg Wims, Jared Solomon, Aaron Kaufman, Leslie Lopez, Laura Charcudian, Will Smith, Sarah Wallach, Emily Shetty, Jeff Waldstreicher, Cheryl Kagan. Did I say Will Smith? Yes. Did I miss anybody? Yes. Thank you. District 15's own Lily P. And Linda Foley. Sorry, District 15, nothing personal. Your name's right on here. Okay. Are there any other elected officials who would like to be part of the applause circle? All right, let's hear it. And more importantly, even than you elected officials, I apologize, is my outstanding board. And so I would like all my board members to please rise and take a bow. Laura Stewart, Mary Lou Fox, Joanne Corpo, Stephanie Mama, Gloria Jones, Barbara Zelenka, Enid Light, and Fatma Berry. I would also like to ask any former WDC board members to please stand or wave your hand. There are a lot of us here. Delegate Emily said, former board member, I apologize. And especially, I want to thank former President Fran Raskin for being our VIP greeter. If you were greeted by Fran, you know you have arrived. Okay, so real quick, my final thoughts. Here are some markers that have struck me. This pavilion opened 100 years ago in 1923. I can get louder. Get louder. This pavilion opened 100 years ago in 1923. 37 years later, it was integrated when the park was desegregated. 7 years after that, the Supreme Court decided Loving v. Virginia in 1967. And speeding up to the present, we're 4 days shy of the first Dobbs Day and just 50 years shy of Roe. We're 2 months shy of the first Republican presidential debate and less than 9 months shy of early voting. So yikes, right? So happily, we have you and WDC and each other and our ally organizations, many of whom are represented here tonight. And we will continue to find ways to build bridges and not burn them in violent, unprecedented assaults on people and institutions and norms. This club has evolved since its founding in 1957, when Eleanor Roosevelt was our first speaker, an eloquent woman with attitude worth admiring. More than 65 years later, we still build community. We've moved into a more muscular advocacy space with rigorous standards and working with many of you and many allies on issues like get out the vote, paid family leave, criminal justice reform, finally a women's pre-release center. Thank you, state senators and delegates. Access to healthcare and mental health and reproductive health care, education, gun safety, clean energy, environmental progress, and of course, synthetic turf. How can I do this? Did you guys know that WDC was involved in 40 bills in Annapolis this year? And a lot of you deserve credit for getting us involved, for bringing issues to us, for advocating for them, and for helping to lead the work and support our pipeline. You are the pipeline to WDC's advocacy and energy. So thank you, and thank you to also to the many donors who have been regularly making gifts to WDC separate from their membership. Your generosity is a real vote of confidence, and it's important to help us keep costs down and allow us to hold events like this for free for our members. It's been a real honor getting to be part of this organization, and I look forward to keeping at it with you, because what's the option? The best way to guarantee a loss is to quit. And because Maya Angelou put it, as long as you're breathing, it's not too late to do something good. She also said along the same lines that history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. So I will finish where I started with gratitude. This is an extraordinary gathering of people who could all be doing other things with their time and resources and talents, but we found each other and identified work worth doing. It's a great collaboration, creative, friendly, lots of humor with a certain dose of saltiness. We'd love to have each of you more involved in whatever aspect of WBC speaks to you as we find better ways to do better. So on to the election. Are we ready? So it should be a fairly procedural thing. Current events have given me so much material for bad jokes about elections and democracy and transparency, just pretend that I've given you some really good jokes. Per our bylaws, I hereby call this annual general membership meeting to order. And per our bylaws, this being an odd number year, we'll now conduct the biennial elections of our WBC Executive Committee. All members who are present and current members are entitled to vote on the Executive Committee. As required, the board appointed a nominating committee, which produced an outstanding slate of candidates for our Executive Committee, which has been posted to the general membership. I hope you had a chance to look at their impressive resumes. As always, WBC is lucky to attract talented, willing, hardworking women. So the slate as submitted and accepted by the board on my right is a great combination of women with 3 new members and 3 returning ex-com members. I believe we have a quorum of 25 paid members. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to nominate this slate for WBC's Executive Committee for 2023 to 2025. Thank you, Pat Levy. Is there a second? Second, thank you, Kenny Pensinger. Are there additional nominations from the floor by a member who is actually willing to serve? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor of electing the stellar team of women to lead WBC for the next 2 years, shout out aye. Aye. All right. So you've already elected her, but here's a bit about my and your new president. An accomplished professional who is the CFO to the large national consulting group, Tazeen has a long history of service to the community with a focus on women. Former commissioner on the Montgomery County Commission for Women, including serving as co-chair of the Women's Legislative Briefing and served on Policy and Legislation Committee. She's the former steering committee member and treasurer of Port Watch Montgomery. Former board chair and member of the Montgomery County Victims Services Advisory Board, graduate of Leadership Montgomery, and this is great, degrees in political science, English, and a master's in journalism. Good combination for this. Help me welcome our new president, pledge with me to help and support her and this team however we can to further WBC's work building community, advocating for women and their families, and for Democrats and democracy. Tazeen, Madam President.
Good evening, everyone. I was worried that before we had the vote, but it looks like it's all good. Thank you so much for coming out, and I hope you're enjoying this beautiful venue and this historic park that we're in tonight. And I want to thank all the WBC members here. I think we have a lot of new members. But all the new members that are joined, could you just like raise your hands just for us to see? That's wonderful. So thank you all for giving me the opportunity to lead this club for the next 2 years. I'm so honored and humbled. I'd like to start by extending a very special thank you to Diana Conway. Diana's leadership has increased the visibility of WBC. She has built bridges and partnerships across our county, and she has a deep understanding for Maryland's political landscape. Diana, I hope that I can lead the club with the grace, passion, professionalism, and the political astuteness that you have done over the years. Thank you for everything you do and everything you'll continue to do for WBC. Also want to recognize Leslie Milano and Laura Stewart, both of who helped steer the club in the past 2 years. WBC is a membership organization of politically active women and men to advance Democratic policy priorities and to elect Democrats up and down the ballot. Our members give us our strength, and our members give us our voice in everything we do. And we do some pretty amazing stuff. We can give a hand of applause for that. So I know Diana went over it, but I wanted to go over a few of the accomplishments of WDC. WDC has written thousands of postcards, we've phone banked, we've knocked on doors in support of Democrats across the country. We've helped organize Signs Across America for Biden and held countless candidate meet and greets and forums. After the 22 primaries, we held one of our signature events. I know many of you here attended that. That event was to celebrate the fact that while we may hold different views at different times, in the end, we all come together as members of the same political party, fighting for equality, justice, and opportunity for all. And finally, kudos to our advocacy powerhouse, the Advocacy Committee, WDC Advocacy Committee under the leadership of Joanne Carovas and the 500 members of our grassroots advocacy alert team. During the 2023 session, as Diana has already mentioned, but I think it should be repeated because it's pretty amazing, WDC advocated for 44 bills, 21 of which passed. And for those of you who've done legislative work, that's pretty good. We're now ready to build upon the successes that we've had, and I invite those of you that are not members to join. Our membership chair, Enid Light, and her team are over in the front, and they're ready to sign you up. Or it's a simple few clicks on if you go home on your computer. As we look ahead to the next 2 years, WDC plans to continue to be a powerhouse democratic advocacy organization, working side by side with our partners on substantive legislation. We hope to grow and diversify our membership, so our membership reflects the beautiful diversity and the rich diversity of our county. We will continue to bring nationally and locally recognized speakers to you and hold community forums. And we want to give members a new way to interact and have your voices heard. So we would like to hear from you. What are some of the programs, some of the speakers, some of the events you would like to see happen? And how can we help, and how can you also help us advance the democratic policy priorities that WDC is working on? We will also have an eye on the 2024 elections, and we'll be on the front line doing grassroots work to support President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Democrats across the county. We're going to need all hands on deck to hold the White House, hold the Senate, and win back the House. So we'll be looking to all of you for help with that work. Our incoming board will be key to implementing the vision we've laid out for the next 2 years. So I'm excited to work with an incredible group of women and would like to take a couple minutes to introduce them to you. And I know that I was originally going to ask everyone to stand, but I realized most of you are standing, so it'll be hard. But if you would wave when I call your name out. Gloria Aparicio. Lisa Fuller. Mary Lou Fox. Fatmata Barry. Enid Light. Barbara Zelenko. Melissa Bender. Joanne Carovas. Cynthia Rubenstein. Levante Chapman. And of course, Diana Conway is going to continue to remain on the board. Congratulations to all of you, and thank you for your commitment to doing this important work. I look forward to working with all of you in our continued support of the Democratic Party. So I would like to now introduce our first speaker. I just want to see if she's here. Oh, there you are. Okay. I just wanted to make sure you were here before I started. And now it is my distinct honor to introduce our first speaker tonight. Our Lieutenant Governor, Aruna Miller, is no stranger to many of you. She's Maryland's 10th Lieutenant Governor, the second woman to serve in that role, and the first woman of color and immigrant elected to statewide office in Maryland. Over 25 years, she worked as a transportation engineer for Montgomery County's Department of Transportation to improve safety and provide equitable access. She served in the Maryland House of Delegates representing D15 for 8 years, and it is a former member of WDC. And though I didn't meet Aruna until early last year, I feel a connection to her because of a shared heritage. We were both born in Hyderabad, India. We both left India with our families as kids, and we both eventually settled in Montgomery County. Aruna has devoted her life to public service, removing systemic barriers to opportunity. I'm so proud of the work she's done and continues to do for our state and our residents. I think it's so wonderful to have role models like her in leadership. Please join me in welcoming our Lieutenant Governor, Aruna Miller.
Thank you. I am so thrilled to be here. Let me tell you, one of my favorite sayings is by a guy named Adlai Stevenson. And he once said that patriotism is not a short, frenzied outburst of emotions, but rather a tranquil, steady dedication of a lifetime. And that's exactly what the Women's Democratic Club of Montgomery County is. You are all patriots, and I thank you for your lifetime commitment to democracy. Now, here's the thing about Adlai Stevenson. Turns out that he is directly associated with the Women's Democratic Club. Yeah, so I did a little research on the club, and it turns out that Adlai Stevenson was the 31st governor of Illinois, and he went on to become the Democratic nominee for the presidential election in 1952 and 1956. Both times he lost to Dwight Eisenhower. But during the 1956 election, a group of women who were very charged up, energetic, and enthusiastic got behind his ticket in Bethesda. And unfortunately, as I said, he lost. But here's the thing, that setback didn't stop them from what they needed to do. They went on the following year in January 1957 and created the first ever, the Women's Democratic Club, where Eleanor Roosevelt was the first speaker at Normandy Congress, right? That's pretty incredible. And I share this story because in life, we have so many setbacks, but a setback is an opportunity for a comeback, right? So let me tell you a little bit about myself. Tazeen has already gave a little bit of bio of who I am, but I wanted to share a little bit more for those that might not know a little bit more about me. So I'm an immigrant to this country, and I came here when I was 7 years old. And I'll never forget that first day when I stepped off that airplane. It was February 1972 in my dad's arms. And I looked into the airport and I saw a sea of people, hundreds and hundreds of people. And I thought to myself, holy moly, I love this country. Look at all these people waiting for dad and me to come to this country. I mean, I literally thought in my little child mind that everybody there was waiting for my dad and me. And then I got really excited when I thought that they were further in welcoming my dad and me by throwing confetti. Turned out it wasn't confetti, it was snow. And I'd never seen snow before in my life. But I've never, ever stopped being excited for the great promise of America. I know for any immigrant and for all of us here today, we know the opportunities our country and our state have to offer, but there's still so much more work because there are so many people that are being left behind. So before I go any further, I wanted to say thank you to the Women's Democratic Party for everything that you do in first of all, educating, encouraging our community to be more engaged, for advocating for progressive policies that fight for those that have been left behind. So thank you for everything that you're doing here tonight. I know that this wasn't easy to put together because I know events like this are hard. As Tazeen said, I was a member of the WDC before, so I know just how hard your work is. And I want to thank every one of the people that are here today, including our incredible elected officials from the state and local level. I'd love to go through and give them all a shout out, but let me tell you, that is one of the hardest jobs when you're a speaker, because you're always going to forget one person. And I want to say that I don't want to forget any one of you. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything you do for Montgomery County and all our residents here. And then finally, WDC, thank you for letting me speak before Congressman Raskin. Whoa. I gotta tell you, I was sweating. I was like, oh God, please don't make me go after Congressman Raskin. As a matter of fact, I was the commencement speaker at Blair High School recently. And even though Congressman Raskin had been a commencement speaker 4 years prior to me, I was still sweating it while I was up there. I was like, this is no fun being after him. But anyway, I'm thrilled, for his leadership as well. So getting back to Montgomery County, look, this is where my husband and I, or should I say my college sweetheart, and I moved here over 33 years ago. And this is where we raised our 3 daughters who all graduated from Montgomery County Public Schools. Yes, to all the awesome educators here. And this is where I decided to dedicate my life to public service. As I mentioned, coming here as an immigrant, you always remember your roots and you're grateful for the opportunities given to you when you come to this great country. And I knew as soon as I graduated from civil engineering that this is exactly what I wanted to do, was devote my life to public service, because this was a way in which I could pay it forward for all the opportunities that have been given to not just myself, but my siblings, my entire family, and to all immigrants that have come here. And our job is to make sure that we make it better for the next generation. And that's why I devoted my life to public service. As a transportation engineer in Montgomery County, I worked there for 25 years and then had the tremendous opportunity and privilege of serving the people of District 15 for 8 years. And finally now, as your Lieutenant Governor from Montgomery County. And I want to say that, look, this past election, we Montgomery County did lose some representation at statewide offices, right? Whether it was for the treasurer, the attorney general, or the comptroller. We had Montgomery County representation in all 3 of these particular positions. But the good news is we have terrific Democrats that are filling those positions right now, even if they're not from Montgomery County. I know they're looking out for every one of us. From Attorney General Anthony Brown to Comptroller Brooke Lehrman to Treasurer Derek Davis. So I'm thrilled to have every one of them there, like all of us here are. And the good news also is Governor Moore knows just how important Montgomery County is. Montgomery County to the state, it is the largest jurisdiction. It is the most diverse jurisdiction of any area in the state. In fact, I believe Montgomery County has 4 of the most diverse localities in the nation, from Silver Spring to Germantown to Gaithersburg to Rockville. Right, Senator Kagan? Yes. And of course, we all know Montgomery County is the economic engine of the state. And so Governor Moore and I understand just how valuable Montgomery County is. And we want to make sure we are making sure that Montgomery County's voice is represented in every facet of our administration, which is why we have quite a few individuals in our cabinet, and one of whom is here today, Secretary of State Susan Lee. And so many others as well. We also have former delegate Eric Lukey, who is the Chief Legislative Officer for the administration, right? Yes. Delegate Kumar Bharve, who is now on the Public Service Commission, and the list goes on, because we know how important Montgomery County's voice is in the decision-making process. And I can tell you for myself as well, Governor Moore has said from the beginning that I am a full partner to everything he does. And I am proud to represent Montgomery County in that space, in the administration, to be a full partner to him. So, you know, we've been in office 153 days today. But let me tell you what we've done during the first 100 days of our administration. We made sure that we could get bipartisan support for 10 bills that we introduced, 10 bills with bipartisan support that passed the legislature. Every one of these bills passed. And we set out to create the most diverse cabinet ever in Maryland's history. Let me tell you, folks, Maryland is the most diverse state on the East Coast. And we wanted to make sure that our leadership and our cabinet reflected the talent and the diversity of Maryland. 50% of our cabinet secretaries are people of color. 50% of our cabinet secretaries are women. And 29% are women of color, because we know that representation matters. Every one of them should have a seat at the table and to be able to represent the unique communities that they are coming from and who they represent. So we are proud to have built a cabinet that is reflective of the talent and the diversity of the great state of Maryland. We also are creating a state, Maryland, to be a state of service. We believe service is what's going to keep us together. Service is sticky. Service is what's going to help us during these divisive times. So we have created, first time ever, the Department of Service and Civic Innovation. In fact, we passed a bill to be able to make sure that high school graduates, when they are leaving high school, most kids at that age really don't know what they want to do with their life, right? So it's important that we engage them, give them experiential learning. So we created an option for them that they can choose to come and serve the state of Maryland, a nonprofit or a private entity, to be able to work in an area that interests them most, whether it's in healthcare, environment, transportation, you name it, whatever it is that they want to learn about, we want to give them that opportunity. So high school students will have 1 year to do that. If they complete that year, they get a stipend of $3,000. They get paid minimum wage during that year. And again, get to work anywhere that they want of their liking. So why are we doing this? Because we believe experimental hands-on learning is critical for young people, because they really get a good feel for what it is that they want to do. It's an opportunity for them to save money, whether they want to go to college, maybe not. Maybe they just want to go to and get a 2-year degree, or not at all. Maybe they want to save it to buy a car, or whatever it may be. And finally, we believe, as I said earlier, that service is sticky. It's going to help us, it's going to save us, and that's why we believe creating a state of service is so critical. Thank you. And Another thing that Governor Moore and I set out to do during the first 100 days and for the rest of our administration is we want to eliminate child poverty in the state of Maryland. And we were able to pass legislation that expanded the earned income tax credit permanently in the state of Maryland and expanded the child tax credit. Two initiatives, two pieces of legislation that have been proven to lift people out of poverty. And that is going to be the mission as we move forward for the next 4 years. And then finally, Governor Moore and I went to every single locality in the state of Maryland, all 24 jurisdictions during the first 100 days. Why? Because we believe it's important to meet people where they are. We believe those closest to the challenge are closest to the solution, which is why Governor Moore right now is taking his entire cabinet, not just to have meetings in Annapolis, but we're going to every single jurisdiction because we want those jurisdictions to know that it's not just Governor Moore and me, but our entire cabinet that's going to be there to listen to their issues, their concerns, and give them the answers that they need rather than saying, oh, okay, we'll look into it, we'll get back to you. This is very, very critical to us. So we're very proud to do that because nothing means more to us than to say that we will leave no one behind. And when we say that, that means we're going to go everywhere that we need to. Thank you. And then finally, I want to tell you a little bit about my own legislative, or should I say my policy agenda in the Lieutenant Governor's office. So I'm working on 3 different items. One is, I'm a STEM major. I'm a geeky engineer. But I got to tell you, I would love to get more women and people of color into STEM because, yeah, for obvious reasons, right? The challenges in the 21st century are going to require those with a lot of STEM education to be able to come up with the solutions that we need. STEM education also is something that you don't need to have a 4-year degree. A 2-year degree will suffice. And even in many cases, 6 months of training will be able to put individuals like this into higher range salary positions. And that's why I want to be able to bring more diverse thought into STEM, because the more there is of that, the better solutions that we'll come up with. Number 2, I'm also making it a priority to concentrate on how we can bring sunlight to something that's been stigmatized for way too long, and that is mental health and behavioral health. Both. Probably I could say every one of us in this room, either mental health has touched us personally or someone that we love deeply. And that has happened to me in my life. And I want to make sure that individuals who are suffering from this don't have to suffer in silence. This is not a moral failure on their part. It is a chronic health condition. And that's how we need to treat it. We need to bring sunlight to it, let people share their stories. And I've shared my story related to that with my father, who suffered from bipolar disorder his entire life. And I know how difficult it is that it was for him and for every one of us in our family that dealt with that. And I know there's countless other individuals that suffer from similar mental health conditions or otherwise. And I want to make sure that we in the state of Maryland make them feel welcome and not to feel intimidated or not talk about it or think it's a failure on their part, because it isn't. And then finally, transportation is going to be a big part of my portfolio. So let me tell you, I know Montgomery County cares very deeply about transportation access, right? So the purple line. So here's the thing on the purple line. This is a project. Let me tell you what Governor Moore and I inherited with the purple line when we walked in. A project that was 4.5 years delayed, $1.46 billion in cost overruns, 2 years that it lay dormant. And in 2020, a contractor that virtually walked off the site. That's what we inherited. But here's where we are today. We know how much Montgomery County and those that have suffered along adjacent of these construction sites along the Purple Line. So we have new leadership on that project because we want to make sure this is a priority and it's expedited as quickly as possible, because we don't want more businesses to suffer with the delay, or pedestrians, or anybody, whether it's motorists and travelers, you name it, that are stuck in these construction sites. We are currently there. We're about, one of the things that's delaying it is the utility relocation. We're about 70% there. And we hope that we'll finish that in the next 4 years. Once that's finished, we'll be able to create a new baseline and new schedule for the project where we can expedite it. Currently, there are 400 workers or 50 different Purple Line construction sites that are working hard each and every day. Again, we're going to try to expedite it as quickly as possible. And then comes 495 I-270 project. Again, let me tell you what Governor Moore and I inherited. $11 billion toll lane P3, which is public-private partnership project, right? So in August of 2022, a record of decision was rendered. Since then, we have hired Secretary Paul Wiedefeld as the Secretary of Transportation, whose focus is transit. So right there, I want to remind all of you that transit is going to be a big part of the Moore-Miller administration. We need to have multimodal access in this state. So where are we right now? In March of this year, Transurban, the private entity there, terminated the contract with the state of Maryland. As a result of that, this is a great inflection point for Montgomery County and the state of Maryland, because we get to kind of look at it all over again and decide, is this the best project moving forward? Do we want to only do a certain section of it, like the American Legion Bridge, which is 60 years old? We need to be able to upgrade that. We need to include things like transit into the design of it, right? Or do we want to get rid of a certain section? And we know exactly what section I'm talking about along I-270, right? From 370 to 495. We know it's a controversial area that really concerns a lot of people here, a lot of people across Montgomery County. So our option is, number one, we're going to make sure whatever we do, community engagement plays a significant role in whatever alignment, whatever design, whatever construction of this project that we move forward with. So community engagement is going to be a big part of it. But right now, where the project is, it's stuck in litigation. We have Sierra Club and a number of other organizations that are suing the state of Maryland. But once we come out of there, we get to decide whether we want to publicly finance this project or if you want to go with the P3. I can tell you, the governor and I, we definitely like the public financing versus the public-private partnership at this point, but we don't know yet. There's still a lot to be determined, but I want you to know that we're going to look at it from an equity lens, from an engagement, community engagement lens, from an environmental lens, and from an economic vitality lens, because we know transportation plays a huge role in our economy, not just creating jobs, but connecting people to jobs. So that's where we are on transportation issues, and that, I promise you, I'll make it a priority as part of my legislative agenda in the lieutenant governor's office. So finally, I want to say congratulations to the new board that's been elected to the WDC. Let me just go through all their names again. Tazina Mott, Gloria Blackwell, Lisa Fuller, Melissa Bender, Joanne Karabas. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. Believe me, I grew up with a name that people mispronounce all the time, so apologies. Mary Lou Fox, and to Diana Conway, thank you for your extraordinary leadership over the years. Unbelievable, honestly. I should let you all know, Diana is the one who encouraged me to be a WD everybody. Now I'm going to leave you with one story. So you all know Kumar Bhargava, right? Elga Bhargava? Well, he served in the General Assembly for over 32 years. He comes and visits me in the Lieutenant Governor's office, and he says to me, "This is the first time I've ever been here." And I go, "What?" I go, "You've been here 32 years and you have never come to the Lieutenant Governor's office before?" And he said, "No." So I want to tell all of you, please don't wait for 32 years, because I'm not going to be there in 32 years. But I give you a warm welcome to come and visit me anytime, not in my office, but your office. It's the people's office. It's always open to you. And I hope you come and visit sometime. Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much, Aruna. Your energy is contagious and your words are inspiring. We're so glad you were here with us this evening. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce my representative, Jamie Raskin. Jamie might not remember this, but I first met Jamie a little after he won his first election to Congress. And that, of course, was the election that brought Donald Trump to the White House. Probably, like most of you, I was shocked, angry, and fearful of what the future held. A mutual friend suggested we meet with Jamie and seek his advice on ways to respond to what was clearly going to be a challenging 4 years. I met Jamie at Tacoma Park Busboy and Poets. And the conversation that morning was in part the reason I'm here today. Jamie, in his brilliance, said, just get involved with the precinct work, with the work of the Democratic Party. He talked about the importance of doing grassroots work and building the party. And that is what WDC has done, and that is what WDC will continue to do. As many of you know, Jamie is a certified rock star at American University College of Law, where he taught constitutional law for more than a quarter of a century, and where he co-founded the Marshall Brennan Constitutional Literacy Project. And he continues to be a rock star in Congress. He's been a pillar of strength through some of the darkest times in our democracy. Jamie once said his ambition was not to be the political center, but to be the moral center. And he's proven that to be true in everything he's done. We're going to need him more than ever as we move forward. So we are grateful. We are, so it is with my immense pleasure that I introduce to you our Congressman, our beloved Congressman, Jamie Raskin.
Hey, everybody. Hello. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I love the sound of that. Congratulations on your election. Diana, congratulations on your extraordinary tenure in office. I'm always happy to be present in a peaceful transition of power. And so I'm delighted to be with both of you. And I know the great thing about the Women's Democratic Club, of course, is that the president's a key position. But as far as I can tell, the former presidents are just as involved when they're former as when they were before, and everybody stays engaged. And I love the Women's Democratic Club. I would say, I'll tell this, I'm in love with the Women's Democratic Club. I've been in love with the Women's Democratic Club so long, it wasn't even the Women's Democratic Club when I fell in love with the Women's Democratic Club. It was the Suburban Women's Democratic Club. Do you remember that? And then it became the Women's Democratic Club, I think in 2013. And then under Fran Rothstein, finally it became the Women's Democratic Club. And that's a club I can join, okay? So I have been a dues paying member for a long time, although I don't think I've been hit up recently. So to me, make sure you hit me up for my dues. But I'll never forget when I got the endorsement, when I ran for Congress back in 2016 of this great political club. And, you know, for me, that was like winning the Iowa caucuses, New Hampshire primary, and Jim Clyburn's endorsement of it in one night. It was the most unbelievable thing to have the Women's Democratic Club on your side. So I'm thrilled to see all my fellow politicians out here in Forts. I assume that have they all been named? Like, yeah. Everybody's like, yeah, they've been named. We don't have time to name them again. I'll call them out as I see them, like my friend, State Senator Susan Lee, formerly State Senator, the Secretary of State. And we used to sit together back in Judicial Proceedings Committee. Those were the days, Madam Secretary. Cheryl, you're still a state senator. How cool is that? Cheryl David, don't get me started with these guys. But thank you for the invitation to come to this great club. I want to, you know, I'm feeling really proud to be a Democrat these days. I don't know how you guys feel. I mean, I'm feeling really, really proud. And I mean, you know, I got my energy back. I got my eyebrows back. Did you know that? In fact, I know everybody's waiting for an announcement from me, so I've got an announcement, all right? My cancer is in remission. And thank you very much. I am in, well, I appreciate it. I do so much. You know, I talked about this, this little book that Susan Sontag wrote, where she talked about how we're all born with two passports, and one is the passport to the land of the well, and the other is a passport to the land of the hill. And we would hope that we're only going to use one passport in our lives, but all of us are going to use both passports in our life. And I'm proud to be a member of the party that understands that, and understands more fundamentally that it is an act of basic civic solidarity to remember that there are people struggling every single day for their health in America, and we're on their side and they're on our side. But I'm feeling really proud to be a Democrat. I mean, the longer I spend time in Congress with Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert and Kevin McCarthy and perjury trader queen, excuse me, Margaret Taylor Queen, the prouder I am to be a Democrat in the United States of America. And, you know, forgive me if I told you this story before. I think I told it when we had Joe Biden come out. But, you know, one thing I noticed, because the Republicans in Annapolis, to their credit, didn't do this, but as soon as I got to Congress, I noticed that the Republicans did something, which is, you know, they would say something like that Democrat Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller, or that Democrat Governor Westmore, or that Democrat Congressman, or that Democrat bill. And, you know, for years I was getting up and I was gently reminding them that Democrat is the noun and the adjective is democratic. So you got to say the Democratic Congresswoman, the Democratic bill, the Democratic philosophy. Are you with me, Democrats? And so, but you know what? They kept doing it. And they kept doing it more when they were around me. Okay. Like they knew it was getting under my skin. And then one day, and maybe you saw it on YouTube or something, but Lauren Boebert was on the floor and she was back to that Democrat bill and that Democrat amendment and everything. And I got up and went through things. She kept doing it. When I said, you know, you guys have this self-appointed political speech impediment. Okay. And it's spreading over to our side because now every time I open my mouth and I try to say the name of your party, it just comes out the banana Republican Party, the banana Republican congressman, and the banana Republican bill. And I went home and I told Sarah, I was very proud of myself, and she said that was an extremely immature response. So luckily I had another idea for them though, because I was reading this awesome book I recommend highly by historian H.W. Brand about FDR and Eleanor Roosevelt, who I know has a long association with this club. But in the book, Brand reprints a lot of Roosevelt's speeches. So you can read his speeches. You know what Roosevelt called our party? Not the Democratic Party, much less the Democrat Party. He called our party with a capital D, the democracy. The democracy. And he got that from Andrew Jackson, who I think got it from Thomas Jefferson. But Roosevelt would say something like, well, the economic royalists and the plutocrats say you invest in the wealthiest people in society. Some of the wealth will just dribble down naturally on everybody else. But the democracy says you invest in the great working middle class of America. We will all rise and prosper together. That's the doctrine of the democracy, said Roosevelt. And so now when they can't get over Democrat and all that stuff, I say, look, if you can't pronounce the name of our party, just do what FDR did. You call us the democracy, because today, my friends, that is what we are. We are the party that believes in the right of every person to vote in the country, even if you're not going to vote for the Democrats. We will defend your right to vote because we believe in democracy. And we're the party that believes in free and fair elections, and we will defend the outcome of free and fair elections, even if we're not the ones who win the election. We're the party that believes in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and stands up for the rights of the people. That's who we are, the Democratic Party. The democracy. The democracy. And you know, so many of the solutions to our problems today are rooted right there in the Constitution, aren't they? Right? I mean, how does it start? We, the people, right? Not we, the states, not we, the corporations, not we, the MAGA Republicans, we, the people. In order to form a more perfect what? Right. Not a more perfect corporation. Not a more perfect government. We, the people, in order for a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and preserve to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of liberty, do hereby ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States. There it is, in that one action-packed preamble, what the purposes of the country are. And so today we've got a contrast between two radically different public philosophies. Our public philosophy says the purpose of government is to be an instrument of the common good and the general welfare of all the people. That's what we say. They say, and they prove they mean it, the government should be an instrument of private self-enrichment for the president and his family and his friends. And they're willing to defend that by trashing the Constitution itself. Well, those are two radically opposed concepts of what government is. And they're willing to put everything at stake in order to stitch together a minority coalition that could still maybe just capture a majority in the Electoral College, that maybe could eke out a majority in the House. My friends, we represent the vast majority of the American people. The vast majority, not even close. And don't let anybody tell you anything different. They survive based on every anti-democratic mechanism either built into the Constitution, like the Electoral College, or that they have been able to improvise and impose on the people, like the gerrymandering of state legislative districts, and then the gerrymandering of congressional districts, like right-wing judicial activism, like voter suppression. They are the party of anti-democracy, and we're the party of democracy. Let's be totally clear about it to everybody moving into 2024, what we stand for and what they stand for. And I'm going to give you just one example of how the solution to our problems, maybe two, maybe three, but one important example, okay, of how our problems are actually resolved already if we're willing to just study the Constitution and abide by it. Now, every time there's a massacre by gun in America, which is more than once a day, our side gets up and says, this is an atrocity. This is a travesty. This is immoral. We must act. And their side gets up and they say, there's nothing we can do about it because the Second Amendment means there can be no regulation of firearms, because the purpose of the Second Amendment, they say, is to allow the people to overthrow the government. I hear it all day long from them, from Matt Gaetz, from Lauren Boebert, who said the Second Amendment doesn't have anything to do with hunting unless you're talking about hunting tyrants. I hear it from all of them, that is the purpose of the Second Amendment. All right, so I decided I'm not going to engage in this dialogue and cross purposes anymore. I'm just going to talk to them about the Second Amendment and what it actually stands for. Because the first thing out of their mouths is always, well, the Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's true. That's the second half of the Second Amendment. What about the first half, which says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I don't know how many well-regulated militias opened fire on consumers at a Walmart, or children in the first grade, or parishioners at a church in South Carolina, or people praying at a synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I don't know how many there are. And the Supreme Court said, this is the conservative Supreme Court in Heller versus District of Columbia. Court said that yes, the Second Amendment gives an individual the right to keep and bear arms, subject to the regulation of the society in the interest of public safety. You have a right to a handgun for self-defense. You have a right to a rifle for hunting and recreation. You don't have a right to a machine gun. You don't have a right to assault weapons. You don't have a right to neutron bombs or nuclear weapons. No, those are arms too, but you don't have a right to them. Nor does anybody have the right to access any firearm without a background check. Nor does anybody have a right to take a gun into a school or a city hall or another sensitive place. Says the conservative Supreme Court. The four liberals in the case were saying that you don't have a right at all to firearms except connected to service in a militia, the National Guard, but the conservatives won, but they won on the terms that every person's right to guns is subject to reasonable regulation in the public welfare, in the public safety. So they say Raskin wants us to repeal the Second Amendment. I don't want you to repeal the Second Amendment. I want you to read the Second Amendment. That's what I want you to do. And then I want you to read the rest of the Constitution, which debunks your insurrectionist theory of our Constitution. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 says Congress has the power to call forth the militias from the states in order to repel foreign invasions and suppress insurrections. Now, why would Congress have a right, a power to suppress insurrections if the people had a right to engage in insurrections to overthrow the government? That doesn't make any sense, does it? How about the Republican Guarantee Clause? Article 4, Section 4, which says Congress has the power and the duty to guarantee to the people of the states a Republican form of government. That's not a capital R, by the way, okay? It's just a representative form of government. And a duty to help the states put down domestic violence. Put down domestic violence. It's right there in the Republican Guarantee Clause. The Treason Clause defines treason as levying arms against the United States. Levying arms against the United States. Does that sound like a pro-insurrection document to you? I could give you 6 more examples, but I'll give you one more example. My favorite example, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment says, anybody who swears an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic, and violates that oath by engaging in, quote, insurrection or rebellion may never hold federal or state office again. Does that sound like a pro-insurrection document? I don't even need to get into all of the Supreme Court case law from the Civil War, which rejects their pro-insurrectionist, pro-secessionist philosophy. How about the hundreds and hundreds of people who've been brought up in charges of trying to overthrow the 2020 election, assault our police officers, and destroy our form of government on January 6, 2021? Out of all of the hundreds and hundreds of charges of people for things like seditious conspiracy, which means conspiracy to overthrow the government, or assaulting federal officers, do you know how many of those charges have been thrown out, or how many of those indictments have been quashed, or how many of those convictions have been overturned? Because the people had a right to overthrow the government of the United States? None of them. Zero. Okay? And so when I tell that to my friends across the aisle, including some of them who are actually interested in the Constitution, like Chip Roy, for example, you know what they come back at? Every time I can just predict it like clockwork. They've got 2 arguments. So one is Patrick Henry, and I think it's because it's out there. There's a Patrick Henry professorship of the Second Amendment and constitutional law at George Mason Law School. So if you Google it, that will come up, which is why I think they say this, and they'll say, well, Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death, which surely he did. That's a slogan, okay? That wasn't in the Constitution. It wasn't part of the constitutional history. It was the 18th century equivalent of a bumper sticker, I suppose, where he said, give me liberty or give me death. But in any event, he was a Virginian, okay, who was an anti-federalist who voted against the Constitution. And this is the guy that they want us to determine the meaning of the Second Amendment in the Constitution around. It's like going to Robert E. Lee to interpret the meaning of the 14th Amendment and equal protection. That doesn't make any sense. So after we knock that down, well, then their big trump card, so to speak, their ace in the hole, they'll say, well, wait a second, the Declaration of Independence says, when in the course of human events and so on, if a government turns tyrannical, you have the right to overthrow it. The whole American Revolution is based on overthrowing a government turned tyrannical. And again, that's completely right, and it's totally irrelevant. Why? Because when Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration, when everybody got behind the Declaration of Independence, they weren't invoking British law. They weren't invoking the Magna Carta. They were appealing to the heavens. They were saying natural law allows us to overthrow the government. They weren't thinking that they were going to get taken prisoner by King George in the Parliament and they were going to be released because of a provision in British law. They swore to each other their sacred fortunes and their lives and their liberty to make that revolution. So if this government were actually to turn tyrannical, right? What happened in 2020? Did the government turn tyrannical? No, the government conducted the fairest, most secure presidential election in American history, which Joe Biden won by more than 7 million votes. $232 to 198 in the Electoral College. Okay, but if they wanted to find that as tyranny, and you want to attack our police officers and get people killed, you want to overthrow our government, fine, but you do it on your own time. And if we catch you, we're going to arrest you, we're going to jail you, we're going to prosecute you under the laws of due process and the presumption of innocence. But if you're convicted, like Stuart Rhodes, the Yale Law School graduate who ran the Oath Keepers, you're going to prison in the United States of America. We believe in our democracy. We believe in our government. And meantime, let's pass the universal violent criminal background check on all gun purchases in America. Favored by more than 90% of the Let's pass the red flag law, like Maryland's got across the country, to make sure that people who shouldn't have guns don't get guns. Let's ban assault weapons in America, take weapons of mass destruction out of the hands of violent criminals in the country. All right, I'm not going to go through the whole Constitution. I mean, I'm really tempted to talk about some stuff, but no, it's getting warm out here, and almost as warm on Capitol Hill. That's where I like to say it's not the heat, it's the stupidity. But we got some tough days ahead of us, my friends. And the Women's Democratic Club is here to lead us, okay? And I want to thank, there's some people I got to thank. And I also have a little presentation I've got to make to the great Diana Conway, but give me 1 second here. And maybe Kathleen, if you come up, I'll get ready for that. But what I wanted to, let's see, we've got the WDC committee advancing democracy in Maryland. Kathleen Matthews, Lynn Olson, Brad Raskin, Cynthia Rubenstein, Lisa Smith, Cynthia Terrell, and Beth Tomasello. Thank them for promoting democracy in Maryland and across the country. I mean, we've got the most extraordinary public officials in the country. I think they're here unless they defected during my filibuster there. I don't know. Jared and Linda and Lily and Jeff and Emily, Leslie, Cheryl, Aaron, Max, Susan, Devang, Evan, Andrew, Will, Gabe, Kate, Marilyn, Lori Ann, Natalie, Mark Elrich, Mark Foreman, Will Smith, Janelle, Lori, Greg, Sarah Wallach. Send them your love, everybody. Come on. Amazing. All of the politicians, they know where the power's at. They know it's here with the Women's Democratic, formerly the Suburban Women's Democratic. All right, let's see. Well, I want to give something to Diana, and then I want to leave you with a closing thought. Where is Diana Conway? Are you out here? Okay. So, now look, I know nobody devotes themselves 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week to the club or to Democratic politics so they can get a certificate of congressional recognition. But nonetheless, it is a tiny sliver of a token of our appreciation and love for you, Diana. And you know, it's not easy to get things through Kevin McCarthy's House of Representatives. So they were looking away that day. And this is a certificate of special congressional recognition presented to Diana Conway in recognition of your outstanding rock-solid leadership of the Women's Democratic Club and your unwavering commitment to strong democracy and personal freedom at the local, state, and federal level. Signed, Congressman Jamie Raskin, on behalf of the body, 8th District, Maryland, June 20th, 2023. All right, so are you guys fired up for creating the biggest landslide in Maryland's history? And we got a great governor and lieutenant governor. We've got an amazing all-blue Democratic Senate and House delegation, county council. We got it all. We are set to mobilize the people to demonstrate to America how this great bastion of democracy and freedom moves forward. And it's by organizing. So I'm gonna leave you with the thoughts of two people who I carry so close to my heart through the dark times. And it's the dark times, until we get rid of Donald Trump. But every day it's getting closer, isn't it? It's getting closer. And he's going to get his comeuppance because you can fool some of the people some of the time. You can't fool all the people all of the time. When I went over there for the impeachment trial, I told those Republican senators, I said, if you can't bring yourself to vote to convict for America, for the Constitution, or for your oath of office, at least do it for your party, because he will destroy Lincoln's party before it's all over. And he is very close to destroying Lincoln's party. But anyway, I wanted to leave you with the words of the great Frederick Douglass, who was born just an hour away from here at the Wye River Plantation. And never forget what Douglass said. If there's no struggle, there's no progress. And the struggle may be moral, and may be physical, and may be moral and physical, but there must be struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. A message to you from a fellow Marylander from the 19th century. I'll leave you finally with a great favorite of mine, Tom Paine, who our son Tommy was named after, and I hold him so close to my heart, right where Tommy is. And Paine, he came over in 1774. He got here 2 years before the Revolution. He fell in love with the promise of America, just fell in love with it. And he said, if America lives up to its promise, its potentiality, he said, then it will become an asylum to humanity. Not an insane asylum, mind you, right? An asylum to humanity, a place of refuge for people fleeing political and religious and economic oppression from all over the world. And in 1776, during the time of the Revolution, it was a very tough time, not unlike today, where the forces of reaction, the nobles and the high and mighty, the people who wanted to merge church and state, the people who wanted to dictate to the rabble what government would be, they were very well organized, as always, very on message. And on the side of change, the side of democracy, everybody's running around, everybody's saying, what's the message, and who's got the message, and all that stuff. But Tom Paine, he wanted to write a message. He wanted to write a pamphlet that would bring people together. And he wrote this message called The Crisis. And you've probably heard me say it before, but I say it the new Nancy Pelosi way, because she said Tom Paine was a feminist, and that he was, and he would not mind if we updated the language so it doesn't offend modern sensibilities. But Paine wrote, these are the times that try men and women's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will shrink at this moment from the service of their cause and their country. But everyone that stands with us now will win the love and the favor and the affection of every man and every woman for all time. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered, but we have this saving consolation. The more difficult the struggle, the more glorious in the end will be our victory. Let's make that victory ours in 2024. Thank you. Thank you all. Congratulations.
Thank you, Jamie. You're always so amazing, and we'd love to hear from you. So we have a couple more things that we just need to, points of business that we need to do before everyone leaves. You'll give me a few more minutes. First of all, I would just like to announce, I think Council Member Wiljawanda joined, and Delegate Greg Wims also joined our event tonight. Thank you all for coming out. I have a few more announcements. The carousel we have open for you for rides. It's a little late, but we still have it open, so please take that opportunity. We have these QR codes on the table. And if you can send your pictures to that QR code, would be great. We now officially, since this is an annual meeting, we need to officially adjourn the meeting. So I would like your patience when we do that. Could I get a motion to adjourn this meeting? A second from Diana Conway. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming out.